You know that feeling when someone shows up for you, just when you need it most? Yeah, I mean, we all need that. That's what Uber's all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way, so you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast with your hosts, Kyle Borganoni and Matthew Betz.
Welcome in. It's Friday, May 30th, Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Borganoni, and I am joined, as always, by Matthew, my Airbnb host, Betz.
What's incredible, Kyle, is that when this podcast comes out on Friday morning, which happy weekend to all of you, you and I will be sitting together at my table sharing a lovely breakfast together. So this is going to be great, man. I can't wait to see you. In a couple of days here. It's gonna be great. So yes, the Borg Betz reunion in person is gonna be this weekend. Have you decided, Kyle, where we're gonna share our vlog at? Is that on Instagram or is that Twitter or what's the social media platform for people to find that?
We're mostly going with Vine, yep. LiveJournal if you really want to see that, or Zanga if you're smart enough to still have yours running.
What about MySpace?
It depends on what kind of music stuff you want to share. But
okay.
There will be photos shared of us at the Phillies and Braves game, which hopefully there's a lot of rain on the East Coast right now. So hopefully it doesn't get rained out. And yeah, I'm looking forward to breakfast. I want to sit at your table with a cup of coffee, and I don't even want to talk about football. I just want to hear what's going to happen is it's going to be your daughters mostly. They'll be the ones talking.
Well, we'll see. They're funny. They're at like the classic toddler stage where they'll pretend. And they actually have never met you, but they'll pretend, even with like our family members sometimes, if we haven't seen them in a week, they just like for the first hour don't talk. And then by the time we're ready to leave somewhere, they won't ever stop talking. So actually what's going to happen is we're going to be eating breakfast. You, me, my wife will all be talking. And my twins will probably be staring at you being like, who is this dude that they've never met in their life?
Tell them it's Uncle Kyle.
So it's going to be
it's going
to be a relaxing breakfast, Kyle. It's going to be great. It was funny when I told the girls that you were coming. I mentioned that you had two kids and they're a little older, but they're in school, and they said, oh, what can we play with them in the basement? So they were very excited to have the boys come visit. So maybe not obviously for this one, but in the future, it'll be good to get the kids together.
We are glad that you are with us on this episode. We will be giving you 10 best ball insights that you need to know. And we could have turned this into just a full-on thread, which I know, Betz, you're a big fan of the way that social media works these days, where it's just, here's 10 things to change about your life, click on this link. Instead, they get an audio format.
I think that's more valuable. We're not going to get the impressions, on this that we need, but it's all right. We're doing our job.
Yeah, we're not farming the right way that you're supposed to on the social media platforms right now. We're just going to talk to you. And I do think the insights that we're going to share today, you will not find anywhere else, because they're coming straight from our Best Ball Primer, which will be live on June 1st in the Ultimate Draft Kit. What we do is we go through all 32 teams and we look at the current ADPs. We compare that historically to, hey, there's a lot of people going in the top, 5 or 6 rounds from this team. Here's historically what it's done. Here's what they need to do to pay off. So we'll give you some stackability metrics. We'll also give you some team outlooks of, here's what Vegas is saying. Here's some of the metrics that we care about with this team in terms of pace and how they can, change the play calling in 2025, and then we'll give you our highest exposures. So some of those players on there are going to be gross because your highest exposures are usually players that you can get later on. But some of our bigger stances that we're taking in best ball, but it is a big project, and our entire team, the Fantasy Footballers, the Ultimate Draft Kit, comes out on June 1st. So it's a lot of work, a lot of love, and a lot of care. And so we're going to share you some of our favorite insights today as a we like you guys, but also like a professional tease. Isn't that what it is?
Exactly. And if you don't really want to wait, the good news is you don't have to, because you keep saying June 1st as if like it's coming right around the corner. June 1st, it'll be here soon. Kyle, it's Sunday. Okay, so this podcast comes out, and then you have basically 2 days to wait till the UDK is here, which I can't wait for. I'm super excited for you guys to get in there and see everything that's the stuff you're used to, but some of the new features as well. I know the app got a huge upgrade. It's incredible. The content is always awesome. And reminder, it changes whenever we get news, information.
Correct.
Injuries happen this summer in training camp, trades, whatever, new signings. Like it's going to get updated whenever we get new information. So we will keep that going throughout the summer. Hopefully give everybody an edge to do great this year in best ball and fantasy in general.
Yeah, and we're trying to always add stuff into the app. One of the things we're going to do over the summer is hopefully include a section that has some of our best ball strategy articles and articles that we're writing over the next couple of months. June and July is going to be devoted to you and I looking at ADP and making some of our bigger calls about league winners and different strategy pieces. We have some other shows, including best ball cheat codes episodes where we talk to people around the industry and say, hey, here's the best way to approach best ball if you haven't really wisened up to how 2025 is different. So a lot of content over the summer, and you can get all of that at ultimatedraftkit.com. I thought about starting this episode with like a quick question, like something, just little thing to get the juices flowing. But I think we just need to jump right in.
Best Ball Bonanza.
So before we get into these insights, a lot of people either might be new to the best ball scene or they've been doing this for a while. And so maybe you're not used to what you've been doing when it comes to ADP. So I just want to kind of explain really quickly the process of how we make our rankings, which is there in the app. And then maybe some things to not do if you're starting out best ball, if you're taking it seriously. If you've been around for a while, you might say like, okay, I know where to go with things, but best ball rankings don't really take into context roster construction because we draft from a top 300 list. That is very different than how we talk about redraft. So any quick do's and don'ts or just ways for people to look at these differently than redraft ranks or a top 300 list, because if you just scroll, you're going to be like, well, Kyle, why did you not take that player? I'm looking at your ranks. I'm in the room with you. And this player's ranked higher who's still on the board, and you didn't take him there. Do you not care about your own rankings at all?
I'm laughing because I'm picturing people using rankings, especially if you're like new to it, as the Michael Scott, Dwight Schrute episode where the GPS tells them to turn into the water, and they're just like, we have to do this. And it's like the same is true with rankings. Like I kind of hate rankings for best ball, if I'm being honest. Not because they're not fun to do or they're not helpful, but it's so team dependent and room dependent sometimes too. Who are you stacking with? What week 17 correlations are you going for? Is your room so thirsty for, quarterback stacks that you feel like you might need to reach 8 or 9 picks to get the guy that you have to have? Or is your room being really nice and letting stacks and quarterbacks fall that you can complete stacks easily? So there's, a million different things that go into like, who do I take when I'm on the clock here with this pick? I think the rankings are very good for getting an idea of who we are above or below consensus on. But otherwise, honestly, like you're drafting teams as if you're correlating the correct way, if your roster construction is the correct way, and all those sort of things. So there's so many factors that go into it that nobody should be following the list, black and white, 1 to 300. There is obviously a lot to consider. And the other thing too is like, if I have guys close to my rankings, for a lot of times in the summer, I will click the guy that's higher. But as we talked about last week, a little bit with managing your exposures, like, I don't know, sometimes I want to switch it up and make sure that I don't have 40% of this player. Like, let me get a little bit of somebody else there to get some different unique player combos. So yeah, a lot goes into it. Definitely don't follow them black and white. Make sure you're using context around all those rankings.
Keep in mind as well that where ADP is now is going to hold, because we're about to be in a dead period of just not a lot of news. You're going to get some hype pieces, but after the NFL draft is where you see a major change. You know, RJ Harvey is somebody we've talked about as like, oh, before the NFL draft, he was like pick 170. Now he's 54th overall. And you kind of get used to where players are going. Like that's what ADP is. If you keep doing a ton of drafts, if you max out some of these, like there's a puppy or the Schnauzer. I don't know if that one's still available on Underdog, but those kind of tournaments, you get used to where players are going because they're time boxed for the month of May. Like this draft is in the month of May, and then they'll come out with a puppy 2, which will be June, and so on. They'll go through some other tournaments on Underdog. Just because this is where a player goes does not make the ADP right. We all understand that there will be players that get injured, players that are just way better. And so one of the things we talk about a lot, and we say in the primer, is, can I profit from where this player is going? He's the wide receiver. Like we're not going to talk about the Browns today, but Cedric Tillman is one of those guys where you look at him, you go, hey, he's the wide receiver 56 or, you know, whatever he is in the 60s. Could he end up being a top 36 wide receiver? And we had a short window where he was the dude in Cleveland. It was with Jameis Winston. It was a little stretch. Then he was out for the rest of the year with a concussion. But I look at those types of things and say, his ADP is saying that this guy is not a relevant player. And yet in our projections in the Ultimate Draft Kit, we view him as an every down player on a team that really stinks, and they might be behind a lot of games. What are they favored in, just one game, the Browns?
One game.
Yeah. So those are the kind of like, you're imagining scenarios where you look at players and go, man, wide receiver 60, even if he's wide receiver 40, like that is a really good gain in, you know, what I'm trying to do as a win rate player, for especially a wide receiver. Like you're not counting on Cedric Tillman to be a top 24 wide receiver. If he did that, then he's the best pick on the board, but you're just really asking him to be your wide receiver 5 or 6 and give you 4 to 5 or 4-ish spike weeks. So that's what I want to just make sure when we look at ADP, we get used to this is where players go. And so some of our insights are, man, do people realize that there are this many players from the Bengals or this many players from the Bears going inside the top 100? And it is shocking when compared historically. So with rankings, you can also take our top 300 list and then copy and paste them. I've seen people do this where they create their own spreadsheet and they put their own column and they compare it and they create an average between Borg, Betz, and themselves. And you can do that. You can color code stuff. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can look at our rankings and make them your own. So any last thoughts on just best ball rankings and what people should do?
No, I think we hit on it. Let's get on these primer insights, because I feel like in May especially, like after the NFL draft, when all the contests are up, Best Ball Mania is out, it's super easy to be like, I need to draft right now. Like get in there and draft immediately and just go crazy. But what's been really helpful for me, not just doing the rankings, but also the primer, is just like taking a step back, chilling out a little bit on the volume of drafts that I'm doing, and like actually formulating like a plan and a strategy for the summer and for right now, based off the ADP landscape, based off of some of our insights from the Best Ball Primer, looking at teams you want to target, who's potentially overvalued in certain markets and undervalued and all this sort of thing. So I'm excited, man. Today should be a good show, and I think the primer will be really helpful this year.
All right, let's start with the Bears, a team that we've talked about a lot. We talked about on the Dynasty podcast this week, if you want more on that team. But right now, I'm looking at a team that has had about 5 players in the top 100. So Caleb's kind of been flirting with top 100 the whole time. You have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Swift is going around 80th, and then Luther Burden is in the late 90s. I don't think people realize like how rare that is for a team that was one of the worst in the NFL in terms of yards per play, just really, really bad. So what are you doing with the Bears? How are you approaching them based on how they're structured?
Yeah, so last year, if you guys recall, our conversation on the Bears was like, we see the path. This is going to be really exciting, we think, with Caleb Williams and, you know, all these great weapons and all those sort of things. But we kept coming back to this, like, how does this all work? Because if you recall last summer, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, and Keenan Allen were all going in the top 36 of wide receiver ADP. And it's like, man, you're asking a lot for Caleb Williams to support two of those guys, let alone three at their cost. So we were like, we see the path, but it's super expensive. So it's a thin bet, basically, based off of last year's ADP landscape. My question this year when doing the primer is like, are we getting enough of a discount from last year to make this another great bet? Because, like you said, you've got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, DeAndre Swift, Luther Burden, and Caleb Williams all going, for the sake of this conversation, basically in the top 100. The only other two teams that have that being the case of 5 players in the top 100 and 6, if you include Colston Loveland at 115, is the 49ers and the Chiefs.
Those are good teams.
And so when I look at some of the, and this is not a perfect science, but when I look at some of the futures markets for betting, it's like, okay, let's look at the win totals for all 3 of these teams that have these expensive pieces in best ball. You know, the Niners are 10.5, the Chiefs at 11.5, the Bears are at 8.5. Strength of schedule, the 49ers, easiest in the NFL by a wide margin. We've talked about that a lot. The Bears are 26 in strength of schedule this year based off Warren Sharp's numbers. And then I went and looked at, I like Mike Clay's defensive unit rankings. It's a little subjective, but basically it gives you an idea of like how good or bad does the general, think that the defense will be this year. And the reason I care about that is because I want great offenses and bad defenses, similar to what the Bengals had last year, where you can just see these crazy shootout scenarios. He has the Niners dead last, and that might mean really good things for the offense if they're pushed. He has the Chiefs 17th. He has the Bears 13th. So this is going to be a top half of the league, most likely, defense. 8.5 wins, a lot of expensive pieces. I'm just not sure we're getting enough of a discount for me right now to go heavy on the Bears, even though, don't get me wrong, like I see the path and I get the excitement with Ben Johnson in town. So what are you doing with the Bears? It feels a little bit more like last year where, you want to be in, but also like, I don't know if I want 4 of these guys at these ADPs because it's tough to pay that off as top 100 picks.
Yeah, I was writing them up where I have a hard time swinging the pendulum towards this is going to be a groundbreaking team. I think you brought it up on the Dynasty podcast where the first year in the Ben Johnson system with Jared Goff, the Lions were a fun story, and then like they came on in the second half, like it took a while for them to gel, and then they became a juggernaut in the next 2 years. I wonder if we're going to get a lot of low ADOT stuff from Caleb Williams. A lot of their stuff was screens anyway last year, but then it was a lot of shot plays that just didn't work down the field. I just worry about DJ Moore paying off at his cost because he's fine. He's been a wide receiver 24 or better the last 6 years. Only Devontae Adams and Mike Evans can match that. But then right now he's being drafted in that exact spot. So I just don't know, like, how are you going to profit unless you have an outlier touchdown season? I do like Odunze. I think Odunze is in a spot where I feel comfortable taking him. And that's kind of been my stance so far. Wide receiver 34 is what I'm seeing right now. So in my exposures, I've basically been going Odunze, getting a little bit of the running game because I think overall the running game is just going to improve. We did see a window where Roshan was cheap, and now people are kind of like, wait a second. He was way too cheap, and people have been clicking the button. So to me, I think it's just Odunze is the main way I'm attacking, but I'm not trying to overstack this team. I think the field's already doing that.
Yeah, and I will say Luther Burden is a guy that will continue to fall. So right now he's in the top 100. I would say probably in like 2 weeks, maybe. He's outside the top 100. He's dealing with a soft tissue injury during this part of the summer, which it's early, but is a factor. And then just based off of like consensus rankings around the industry, I think Burden's still got some of that like post NFL draft ADP that's kind of hung on to him as far as where he goes. He'll slide a little bit. So maybe Bear stacks will get cheaper as the summer goes on. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But right now, like you said, like I'm taking maybe like 2 of these guys and then kind of holding off because it's hard to, like you said, to stack 4 of these guys and have them all be right, basically. So that's where I'm at, kind of similar to last year, but just a little cheaper than it was in 2024.
I was definitely like way under market last year from the simple like, hey, these 3 wide receivers cannot pay off. Even though I love Keenan Allen. I'm looking at the playoff matchups this year. Week 15 is Cleveland, whatever. But week 16 is Green Bay, who I have a lot of exposure, and week 17 is San Francisco. So those are like teams that I've already been heavy in on. So I'm finding that there are pieces within my teams where I go, hey, I have a Dunze and then a Niners stack. Or I have Swift and, I've got some Packers in my lineup. So I find that there is a way for this team to pay off without fully like overstacking. I just think Caleb's priced close to his ceiling. Like he didn't have any rushing touchdowns last year. He ran for over 400 yards. He's going to get in the end zone at least once or twice on the ground, but like, I don't know, what's his ceiling this year to you? Highest possible outcome.
The number that popped in my head was like QB7.
Yeah, I was thinking 6, and I feel like right now he's being priced near his like 85th percent outcome.
Yeah.
So I don't love paying that type of price. Let's take a quick break, and we'll talk about some more teams.
On June 6th, the deadliest warriors become the greatest prey.
We must fight together.
Witness the next evolution of the Predator universe. From the director of Prey.
What happens if we survive?
Predator, Killer of Killers. Rated R for strong bloody violence and gore and language. Streaming June 6th. Only on Hulu and Hulu on Disney+.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
All right, I want to talk about Baltimore because they are kind of a weird team to stack. Like when you look at Baltimore and you think, okay, who's their two best players? You're like, well, it's Henry, it's Lamar. Am I going to stack those two together? Now, last year, if you were bold and you took those two, their advance rate together, Henry and Lamar stacks, if you had just those two players, was, where's the button, Kyle? Come on. 55%. That's really, really good. But keep in mind that only 7% of Lamar lineups even had Henry in them. So it wasn't like this overwhelming amount of people that decided to stack them together. The weirdest thing I found, and we put this number there in the Best Ball Primer, is that they were negatively correlated last year. Like if you just look at those two. So you kind of got that ping pong approach. Did it feel that way from us playing DFS? We're like, okay, this is a Lamar game. I mean, Lamar was good the whole year. Or like this is a Henry ceiling game. It feels like if you're going that route, that's what you're asking this team to be again. And I don't know, like it's hard for me to look at that statistically and say Lamar's going to throw 41 touchdowns again and Henry's going to have over 2,000 scrimmage yards. Are you initially looking at those two players that way?
I mean, they definitely were incredible last year. And one area where they were insanely efficient was in the red zone. I think that it's hard to predict that year to year, but like just based off of their play calling philosophy and their personnel, I would expect them to once again be successful, but maybe they're not as outlier successful as they were last year. I will say, like on a week to week basis, what sticks out in my mind with this team is I remember in like certain showdown contests and stuff on DraftKings, like historically I will dock, Lamar when I have Henry captain, just because thinking about how those guys score their ceiling, Henry's rushing for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns. Maybe Lamar isn't doing as much. But there was like a couple fluky moments last year where he'd throw one to Henry or they would both run for 2 touchdowns or just stuff like that it kind of worked. So that's what sticks out to me. But I will say too, like we brought this up in the early version of Best Ball. A lot of people, and I think myself included, were like, well, I don't want these guys together because I want the insane Lamar season, which probably will take away from Henry. But it's like if the offense is just good, these guys will both be good.
I want all the touchdowns.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think putting them together is fine this year. I mean, Henry's a little bit more expensive than he was last year, obviously. But, yeah, that's funny that DFS example stuck out to me because there was a couple where I was just like, I was getting crushed at the bottom of the leaderboard where he's throwing touchdowns to Henry, and it's like, this was not supposed to happen. So we'll see what happens this year.
For a team that was top 5 in almost every single offensive metric last year, if you think that this is just, rinse and repeat, it's the same thing. Keep in mind that the opportunity cost is higher this year. Henry's going about 15 spots higher, Lamar 10 spots higher, and rightfully so. They were historic seasons. I think the part of this team that I want to highlight is the receivers, because Flowers is kind of going where he went last year. It's a little bit behind. He was the clear number one target and read for this offense. 30% of the team's first read targets. But 4 total touchdowns is really disappointing considering Lamar threw for 41. I looked this up. It's the lowest ever for a wide receiver 1 on a 40 passing touchdown team. And that's just not his game. And it's not going to be his game. He had 8 red zone targets. Your boy Greg Dortch had 8 red zone targets last year. That's a little shot there at Dortch.
Way to go, Greg.
It wasn't a compliment.
Way to go, Greg.
It was not a compliment. No.
We did it.
No, not at all. So, you can look at this and go, okay, well, Andrews is cheaper. I guess and go that route. I think Bateman's my favorite. And maybe you hate me for saying that, because I looked at the primer from last year and I really liked Bateman. And I kind of like Bateman again this year. And speaking of correlation, his correlation with Lamar was 0.55. That was the best for a Lamar pass catcher last year. And he's going as about wide receiver 55. All right, I'm not going to hit the drop anymore, but you get the point. You get the point. He's the part of this offense that is not priced in considering where the quarterback is going, right? He's a QB2 going as a top 36 pick. And yet Bateman was the one that was the better red zone and better big play receiver than Zay Flowers. So do you agree with me on that front?
I think predicting touchdowns in a single season is impossible to do.
What?
If you recall a few years ago when some rando named Amon-Ra St. Brown was getting steamed up after his breakout, which Kyle clearly was on, a lot of people were like, yeah, but what's the touchdown upside? He's going to be like a 6 touchdown guy in his career.
He is a weird outlier, dude.
And James Cook, he's not a touchdown guy. He'll never be a touchdown guy. I just don't buy that with Zay Flowers, because the talent is there. First round NFL draft pick. The peripheral metrics are good. He has had plenty of spike weeks, in my opinion, where he goes pick 50 in a wide receiver heavy environment to get him in the 50s often. I'm in on that price. So it's not that I don't want to take Bateman, and I'll take both guys if I'm taking Lamar or something, but I think Flowers is a little undervalued personally. It's kind of how I see it, because Mark Andrews is not catching 11 touchdowns this year. And let's say 3 of those go to our boy Zay Flowers. That there's potential here. So I'm not buying the not a touchdown score. Now, granted, when you have Derrick Henry and you get inside the 10-yard line, you're running the football. So there is a cap ceiling for sure, but saying this is a 4 touchdown guy, a 5 touchdown guy, and that's who he'll always be, I don't necessarily buy that.
I'm going to bring your past self on this podcast. I'm going to bring him back from the past to the future here, the present, I guess. Whatever it is, whatever time frame you happen to be on. And I'm gonna replay those dumb words you just said about Mark Andrews. You think he's slipped?
Wait till you guys
he's not good anymore?
Wait till you guys see my exposures blurb in the primer, which I won't share here. I'll let you see it, but pour one out for our boy.
You didn't even answer my question about Bateman, though. So I agree about touchdown prediction. Flowers could get to 6 and be fine at his price. But Bateman, man, are you in?
But Bateman could get 3 at his price. How good of a pick is that? No, he's fine. It's just he's in the wide receiver part of the ADP board where a lot of these guys are the same bets, where it's just
See, I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm excited to click him because I know this is a good offense.
Yeah.
And I can have more confidence. Last year, he was a valuable best ball receiver last year.
Yeah. He was, but he went a lot later for the majority of the summer.
Yeah. Okay, so apparently I like Bateman, and apparently you like Flowers, and Marky Mark is just on the side of the road.
Just
trying to
take Lamar and then take both wide receivers.
Hitchhiker finger.
Don't take. Okay. Just don't take Andrews.
All right, what's the next team?
All right, let's keep this going here. Let's talk about, who do I have? Oh, how about the Kansas City Chiefs?
Our prices have never been lower.
For years, if you wanted a Mahomes stack, you're spending up, right? Like I went back and looked at his ADP. This is August ADP on Underdog from 2021 to last year. 33, 47, 21, 46. So historically in Underdog's existence, if you wanted Patrick Mahomes, you're selecting with a top 50 pick. This is the first time, like ever, I'm seeing Pat Mahomes with an 80 next to his name in ADP. And there's often times where you will get him to slip to the late 80s, sometimes right around pick 90. So I'm looking at this team and it's like, man, this is a team with 11.5 wins. They're favored in every game but one. And it kind of feels to me like maybe we've gone too far the other direction with Mahomes, where for years it was like, let's keep chasing these insane Tyreek Hill seasons. Let's keep chasing these 5,050 touchdown upside potential with Mahomes, to the point where now it's like, he's a game manager. Like nobody really wants him. Yet at the same time, like historically the quarterback 6 to 7, and it's different based off every ADP landscape, but historically this has been kind of a hotbed for like really good advance rate type of players in best ball. 2021, you had Justin Herbert with a 30% advance rate going right around pick 80. 2022, you had Joe Burrow with a 21% advance rate at pick 72. 23, Trevor Lawrence in the 60s. And last year, obviously, Joe Burrow was insane, 40% advance rate going right around this same ADP. So I'm not saying that those guys are all the same players or that they're the same team makeup or any of those sort of things, but just historically, like this has been a sweet spot for a big win rate type of quarterback. And I kind of find myself where like in recent seasons, I've been out of Mahomes because he's so expensive that I kind of want to buy back in for a couple of reasons. One is the cost and the price being lower than we've ever seen. But historically, league winning upside comes from these ambiguous, unknown situations. And I would say the Kansas City Chiefs, like point blank outside of Mahomes, nobody knows, right? Like we saw 0 snaps last year with their big three on the field in Rice, Worthy, and Brown together. Because remember, Rice got injured in week 4. Hollywood Brown had the SC joint injury in August, and Worthy was there all season, but we haven't seen all three of them. Then you look at the running backs and it's like, I don't know what Pacheco is anymore. Whereas last year he was like a borderline 2-3 pick. Who's the RB2 that you want if you're not taking Pacheco? Nobody knows. Yet Mike's research has shown us that when we have these situations where there are top NFL offenses with running backs going outside the top 24, which all these guys are, that historically the hit rate is awesome. So I don't know what the answer is on like who to pick. I just know that there are players to pick from this offense that probably will be really good win rate players based off the fact that their prices are cheaper than they've ever been.
I will agree with you that I've clicked the button on Mahomes a lot more than I thought. I'm in a BBM draft right now where I have Mahomes. The only issue is that everybody wants some piece of this, even if it's ambiguous. Like I have teams who are like, oh, I just want Worthy. Or, you know what, I'm taking Kelsey as my tight end. He's going too late, and I have him ranked higher. So there is a lot of, there's a lot of chances where I can't stack the Chiefs the way that I want to because people want Rice or people want Worthy. And then it's like, well, okay, well, they're going to go after Mahomes. Like I have a draft where I took Mahomes, and I'm like, sweet, I'm going to get Kelsey ahead of ADP. That's where I have him ranked. And of course, somebody snipes me. So I'm sitting there with Mahomes thinking like, okay, I guess I have to go Hollywood Brown. I guess I have to go Jalen Royal. Like I wanted more than just a single stack with Mahomes.
Yeah.
So that's my only issue. In reality, I think people still want pieces because they are cheaper.
Well, Kyle, the way that you combat this is you take one of the wide receivers. You also take Cortland Sutton or RJ Harvey, get your week 17. And then Bo Nix goes right around the exact same pick.
You're telling me to take RJ Harvey?
Yeah, imagine not doing that. It goes right around the exact same pick. Either way, you got your quarterback set up for your week 17 stack. I actually have done that a couple times. But yeah, I just think it's a nice time to buy back in on the Chiefs based off the public sentiment of it's only a dink and dunk offense. Mahomes is only a game manager. Their defense is going to be great again. I just have a tough time buying that's definitely going to happen. I'm not saying it won't. I just think the market is overreacting a bit where now we can get KC stacks for decently affordable prices, and that has not been the case for the last 4 years.
No, I totally agree. I do have some thoughts on Rashee Rice that maybe you and I can duke out later because I understand his upside. I understand how good he was in the first 3 weeks. I think that there are some red flags in his profile, and I feel like you and I completely differ on that player.
Yeah, we do.
So maybe I'll save that in like a explain yourself kind of segment because I've got some thoughts. Anyway, Next team I want to bring up is Cincinnati. They're expensive, and I think you already know that. If you're listening, you're like, okay, I got to pay up. So Chase, 101. Higgins is the wide receiver 12 going at the 2-3 turn. Chase Brown is a top 30 pick currently. And then Burrow is going, in the first 5 rounds as well. So you have 4 players in the first 5 rounds. It's super top heavy. But here's the insight that I think we don't realize. There is more than 120 spots between Burrow, which is the 4th Bengal off the board, and the next Bengal, the 5th Bengal off the board, Mike Gesicki. That is the largest gap in ADP between any 2 players of the same team in best ball this year. I mean, that is massive. That is a full 10 rounds between Burrow and Gesicki. Before I even go any further, I just feel like that point needs to sit there, that there's something wrong with this ADP of this team. Let's just say somebody gets hurt, okay? One of those top 3 choices, Chase, Higgins, Brown. I'm not projecting it, but based on best ball, I would say that this ADP is wrong, okay? I'm not saying that Mike Gesicki's the best pick in the world, but as the 3rd option in the passing game, or 4th, he should not be going this late. And the backups for the Bengals, like Taj Brooks or whoever you think is the backup running back, should not be going this late. So are you attacking the Bengals as, if I don't get one of those elites earlier, I'm willing to take some shots later? Because we know it's a good offense. And we know their defense is going to stink.
Definitely. And I think if you're building out even if you don't get some of the early guys and you don't want to spend up on Burrow, I think even something like, Jamar Chase and Mike Gesicki is a fine pairing together, or take a wide receiver and Chase Brown and then Mike Gesicki later. You don't have to have all 5 pieces for this to be a good team to target, and for some of their cheaper pieces to be good picks. Looking at Mike Gesicki last year, when T. Higgins was banged up and injured, he was earning targets at a very, very high rate. I think everybody was surprised when they signed into the contract that they did. So there's a financial commitment here too for Mike Gesicki to kind of be their wide receiver 3. Remember Eric All Jr. coming off another ACL injury. So I think as far as his role as the pass catching tight end, it's very, very safe. And he goes in a spot of the draft where the running back talent dries up very quick. The wide receiver talent dries up insanely quick. And it's yeah, I need a tight end too. Oh, and he's one of the 8 that go there. But yeah, it's a high-powered offense. We know the pass rate is going to be there. The defense probably struggles again. I definitely see the path where he is a good pick, can give you 4 to 6 spike weeks and hit your lineup as your tight end. So yeah, I'm with you. That gap is too big based off of how the market is projecting Joe Burrow to perform this year.
Yeah, and he could be your tight end 3 if you build somehow that way, if you just kind of punt the position till later. He's going so late, it doesn't really make sense. I will just eat crow and say last year we had a listener question about Mike Gesicki on this podcast. I remember over the summer, and I did a bunch of research, and I was like, man, there's 5 tight ends there, right? It was your boy Drew, Stool Sample,
the sampler,
Eric All Jr., yep, Tanner McLaughlin, and then preseason hero Tanner Hudson are all there, and there was injuries to Higgins, and he was relevant. He had a 28% advance rate. That was the highest among all tight ends. Now, he was going as the last pick, so that's why his advance rate was so good. But I just like their playoff schedule too. Baltimore, at Miami, Arizona. Why not take a shot at this offense and get a really cheap piece? So Gesicki does not make sense based on the ADP. And then I will just say I think Taj Brooks is a fine, final pick too if you want to get in on that.
Yeah, the only thing on Brooks is I just want to make sure that he's
I'll wait until July to start taking
him. Just kind of bookmark that one for later this summer once we get news in training camp. But yes, I'm with you. All right, let's talk about what everyone wants to talk about, Kyle. Who doesn't want to talk about the Eagles? Okay, we're Super Bowl champs. I had such a big part in this season. No. I love that when people of the fan base is we did this. It's no, you didn't do anything. But the Eagles obviously coming off of a historic season. They win every game. They're crushing every team in the second half. Yada, yada, yada. We know the story. Saquon Barkley has one of those outlier all-time great seasons that we're going to remember forever. I feel like this is a really good time to go right back to the pass game. Because when you look at what has changed for Philadelphia this year, we mentioned this on our win totals episode, their strength of schedule is the largest delta in the league, meaning they had the biggest change from easiest to most difficult year over year. And I think that's going to lead to a lot more passing volume for Jalen Hurts in 2025. And if I think that's going to be the case, I'm not saying I'm fading Saquon Barkley, but I'll probably be underweight. I will be overweight Jalen Hurts because the tush push is still a thing. AJ Brown, who is frequently available at the back of the second round, and Devonta Smith, who's available in the 40s, and Dallas Goedert is left for dead. Meanwhile, if you look at this kind of second half splits for Jalen Hurts, which Rich Rebar put out a great thread on Twitter about this, he said they trailed for a league low 134 snaps on the entire season in the second half. That is crazy. And then you look at how many pass attempts Jalen Hurts had in the second half of last year when they were trailing. It's like the fewest in the league. So basically, the recipe was, let's play really well in the first half. Let's get out to a lead. Let's give Saquon Barkley the ball over and over again in the second half with a positive game script. If that just isn't possible this year because they're in more back and forth shootouts, the defense isn't as good, whatever the case may be, I think the pass game for Philly is a bit undervalued. And it's not like we're projecting that to change with bad players. Like AJ Brown is a superstar. Devonta Smith is awesome. Dallas Goedert is a totally fine pick where he goes for his talent profile. So I just think it's a really, really nice time to go right back to the pass game here. And again, not that I'm fading Barkley, but I will probably be underweight and rather try to attack Philly through the air this year.
Yeah, and to go with Goddard, because I think his price is way too low for the offense. He is over 100 picks behind Hurts. So like as the team's fifth option, he fits that same mold as Gesicki as like, you're going too late for an offense that's this good. So I'm with you. I mean, I liked the Eagles a lot last year. They were my MVP pick on the Ballers main show. I kind of cheated and just said the whole team.
That was a good call.
So you tell me who won the Super Bowl for that team.
You did.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying. I have a lot of Devonta Smith. It didn't work out so well. I'll tell you that. But yeah, is there any cheap pieces on this team, or is it like just pay for the studs and go for Goddard?
I mean, we've talked about Will Shipley as just like a strictly insurance back who's too cheap for where he goes, but otherwise it's like, man, they really do condense all their volume to those big three when they're all on the field together. So yes, I don't think you need to really worry about the wide receiver 3 or 4 or anything like that. It's pretty obvious who to take, but I just think getting exposure to those names, as far as their big three in the pass catching group, makes a lot of sense based off of how fortunate they were last year to be in positive game scripts all year long.
All right, that's 5 insights we've shared. 5 more to go. Let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
All right, let's talk about Dallas and talk about the Cowboys. Before the George Pickens trade, Dallas was in a kind of weird position where the only player on the team with the top 100 ADP was CeeDee Lamb. It's like, oh, take CeeDee with a top 6 pick, and then don't think about the team at all. Like, don't consider them until way later. Now it's a little different that Pickens is on the team, but still, the only teams in best ball right now with fewer than 3 players, so it's just Lambs and Pickens inside the top 100. The only teams with this type of ADP are Cleveland, Carolina, Jacksonville, New England, New Orleans, Tennessee, and Dallas. Dallas sticks out as the one team that we would go, man, all those other teams feel like bottom feeders. I mean, Jacksonville could be interesting. New England could be interesting. But Dallas is an offense that we're kind of betting on. We're betting on a return to the passing game. And you've seen Dak's ADP kind of rise up since the Pickens trade. But, like, those are the only 2 wide receivers that are carrying any type of draft capital. So Dak is one of those players that should finish inside the top 12 because in 6 full seasons, he's finished as a top 12 quarterback in all 6 of them. And before he got injured last year in week 9, he was throwing the ball 37 times a game, 264 passing yards. Those are both top 5 marks among quarterbacks. So I think the way that I'm going about Dallas this year is saying, I know the running backs are interesting. I get that if you want to go with Javonte, I don't like Jaden Blue's ADP. I just think I'm going to lean into the passing game because I think Dak is a steal.
Yeah, I think Dak's an awesome pick, and therefore any of his stacking partners, which you're only getting CD if you have a certain pick, obviously based off where you pick in the first round. And then Pickens, I think, is a really strong pick where he goes based off of his potential upside if things break right. We just haven't really seen Pickens play in a system that can support 2 wide receivers or that wants to be a high volume offense. And you and I often talk about this where it's like, if you just look at some of the personnel moves and the depth chart, usually the solution is the most obvious, where it's like, oh, we have, I don't know how we would rank Dak in the league as far as an NFL starting quarterback, but he's a top half of the league at least player. He's great. You've got a superstar in CeeDee Lamb. You trade for George Pickens. Like, I don't know. They're probably just going to try to win every game through the air and put up a ton of points and not hand the ball to Javonte Williams 22 times. Like, that seems like the most logical solution. So based off of that and the fact that I think their defense probably will struggle this year, I am very, very in and kind of want to like aggressively be in on Dallas in that front. It was just 2 years ago. Remember that what you had to have in week 17 was the Dak CD stack with Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta, like in that crazy, crazy game. So they have a massive ceiling, and it kind of feels like the shine has worn off based off of last year, but a lot of it was injury. A lot of it was natural regression, and if they just kind of bounce back to what we expect them to be, I think Dallas pieces are really, really exciting this year.
You cool with tacking on a little Turd Ferguson at the end?
Turd Ferg? Why not? What you do is you take Turd as your tight end 2, and then you come back with Turd Ferg 2.0 in round 18 with Terrence Ferguson. You got the double turd? The double turd in week 17 is what you need.
Dude, that's what you really need, because we've talked about this before. The final game in best ball playoffs this year is the Rams and Falcons. So Terrence Ferguson could win. I will say, looking through some Jake Ferguson stuff, 2 years ago, he led all tight ends in red zone targets. Last year, he had 8 and didn't score a touchdown the entire season. That's not happening again. So I think he's a fine pick. He's like tight end 15 right now. He's going where he should go. And then if you want to stack him with Dak, I think it's totally fine.
I'm with you. All right, from one team that is going to throw, I think, the heck out of the football to a team that I think is going to try to win like 21-17 every week. Let's talk about the Seahawks. This is not the 2024 Seahawks. They are basically completely new, and obviously everybody knows that, but just to remind everybody of kind of what's taken place at the coaching level, last offseason, they brought in Mike Macdonald from the Ravens. He was their defensive coordinator. He's now their head coach, obviously. The OC, Ryan Grubb, is gone. They're bringing Clint Kubiak from the Saints. Geno is gone. Replace him with Darnold. They move on from Metcalf and Lockett. So now it's a room of JSN, Kupp, MVS, maybe Torrey Horton as a rookie, but it's just so different. And the writing is on the wall as far as what they're telling us they want to be. They would like to play great defense, and they would like to establish the heck out of the run. So when I look at this team, last year they had a lot of defensive struggles, and you saw that early on. Weeks 1 through 8, they were 21st in EPA per play, 19th in scoring as far as points allowed. Then the back half of the year with McDonald's system, they were 5th in EPA per play and 5th in scoring allowed. So the defense was kind of the strength of the team. And I think with this staff, what they're going to want to do is run the ball a ton and try to play great defense. So when I'm looking through these metrics and kind of understanding their philosophy, you and I both love Ken Walker. I have been taking a ton of Zach Charbonnet as just a in case Walker gets hurt kind of guy, which we've seen him step right in. But I'm just, I'm having a tough time clicking JSN where he goes. I really don't know how much Kupp has left in the tank. And then it's like, do I really want Sam Darnold's wide receiver 3 or 4? It's a tough sell for me based off how I think this team is going to want to play. So that's where I'm at with the moves. The primary insights for me is just like, man, everything is pointing towards a Ken Walker incredible season if he can stay healthy.
I don't know if I've clicked too many other Seahawks. I mean, I've had Walker. I think I said on our first best ball show, like, he will be the player that I'm the most aggressive versus ADP, and I've been that way. I have a BBM team right now that has Kenneth Walker as my running back 1. Now it's got some boys at wide receivers, so watch out. But I just don't know who else on this team I want to invest in. Like, what are you doing with Charbonnet?
I'm taking Charbonnet if I don't have Ken Walker, or honestly, sometimes I'll take them both together, where it's just like I'm betting on this rushing attack being efficient, which they were, to some degree under Kubiak last year with New Orleans. I think the scheme is going to fit Walker quite well, but like I said, whenever Walker has missed time, like in redraft leagues or in DFS, like you're starting Charbonnet, no questions asked, because he will get the workload. So I think both guys are really strong picks for the upside case for each player. I think obviously if Walker stays healthy and he's great, Charbonnet won't be an awesome pick, but Walker's missed time before. So I'm taking both guys. And like I said, I've even kind of mixed it up a little bit, taking both together.
Feels like Cooper Kupp is this year's Stephon Diggs, where you change teams and you're like, he's probably done. And Diggs was really, really good as the, second option in that offense until he got injured. So I've been going back and forth with Kupp, like how to handle him. I've kind of just been at market, not really trying to go overweight on that. All right, next team I want to talk about is the Rams. Speaking of Cooper Kupp, last year we talked about how they were kind of a fragile team in best ball because you had to take Puka, Kupp, and Kyren all in the top 3 rounds. And the thing is, that exact same formula is here in 2025. You sub out Devontae with Kupp, and you kind of are left in a dilemma with the Rams by asking, can they pay off? I mean, Kupp was actually going a full round ahead of where Adams is, but I'm just asking the question where Puka is, where Adams is, and where Kyren is there enough touchdowns for all 3 to pay off there? And I did some math because that's what I do with my job sometimes. I feel like you need both of them to hit 25% target share between Adams and Puka. I don't think that doesn't seem like an issue for Puka, but you need it to be super condensed, and you need at least one of them to hit double-digit touchdowns. We've seen that with Adams. We've seen that for like 9 years, basically, that he's that dude. So if you're just looking historically, I think this can work, but over the last 4 years, we've seen 9 pairs of wide receiver teammates with top 36 ADP. So like Adams and like Puka. So 9 different teams over the last 4 years. So it was the Bengals, it was the Chargers with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, the Dolphins did it, the Eagles did it a couple times, the Rams last year with Puka and Kupp. And here's the thing, only one of those teams produced 2 wide receivers that surpassed a 20+% advance rate each. That tells me that one of these ADP is probably wrong. Now, injuries can obviously change any advance rate data. So, are you taking Adams and Puka at their ADP?
I am a little bit above market on Puka because
because he's Puka.
Because he's Puka. There's not much to say. And Adams, I think, is a really strong target as well where he goes, because I do think there is a really, really good chance that, assuming health, which obviously we can't predict, but assuming both guys are on the field, like who else is earning targets? They don't really throw to the running backs. Their tight ends are, Higbee, who's fine, or a rookie tight end, which I've mixed in both guys throughout the early part of draft season, but you're not really factoring in a lot of targets for the tight end position. And then the wide receiver 3 is going to be a mix of Tutu or Jordan Whittington. And it's, again, like they have a role, but Sean McVay is not going to dial up plays for those guys. So I get why the ADP is where it is. Both guys are very talented. Both, obviously, Puka in the prime of his career, and Adams not showing any signs, at least in the peripherals, of slowing down, that I think their ADPs are fair. I naturally have been trying to say, okay, if I'm taking Puka, maybe I will just set up a Stafford double stack and hope that it is so condensed, but your data is kind of not scaring me away from it, but at least making me question, like, how often do I want to be doing that? Because, like you said, and this is just in general in best ball, when guys go high together as far as teammates, it's really tough for them both to kind of pay it off. So not that they can't do it, but again, your data suggests the odds are against these guys.
Yeah. And I gave the caveat at the beginning, like the way it works is that this is a really condensed target share. They each see 25+%, and one of them hits double-digit touchdowns, and I think Adams would be that guy. The player that scares me the most at this ADP, if I'm going to say who doesn't pay off, it's Kyren, and I'm looking right now at our rankings. I have Puka like a spot below ADP. So
hater.
I don't care. Yeah, I know. I'm such a hater. So Puka's fine. I'm ahead of market. You and I both are significantly on Adams. So I don't know if that's too bullish. I have him as a top 24 player. You have him at 28. His ADP is like 31. So we're a little bit ahead of market, but I am behind market, and so are you on Kyren Williams. So that would just be my piece of wisdom is the declining efficiency. He's been the worst receiving running back in terms of yards per route run 2 years in a row. The worst in the NFL. And they bring in Jarquez Hunter, who I think is actually a good SEC running back. I worry that like he will not pay off at his ADP. Now, he's been awesome workload wise. If you want to use all his stats, he's been awesome. I just think if I'm going to take a stance, it's anti-Kyren.
Yeah, Kyren's so interesting because it's like we do this, or we've done this a couple years in a row where it's like, how good is this guy actually? And turns out Sean McVay doesn't care and he will just give him the ball no matter what. But you have back-to-back years of not elite draft capital, but pretty good draft capital of Blake Corum and then Jarquez Hunter. And there's been some small rumblings of an extension for Kyren. I'm just curious, like, when that happens, and if it does, like, does that change your opinion? Because right now it feels like maybe they're signaling, let's prepare for after Kyren just in case. But at the same time, I know how much Sean McVay loves him and trusts him, that if he signs a 2-year extension tomorrow, like, does that change how you feel about Kyren's workload?
I mean, I would move him up from where I have him now, but I think what you're asking him is to get 15 touchdowns.
It's a lot of touchdowns.
That's what you need. That's what he's been doing, and yet as a receiver, he's not been that valuable.
Yeah.
At all. So I usually will just bet against those type of players. It's why Jonathan Taylor's somebody that I brought up a couple of times on the Dynasty podcast. Like, yeah, could he get 15 touchdowns? Could he rush for 1,600 yards? Sure. But I will bet against someone that's declining as a receiver on a team that, you know, inside the red zone, I think they have other options this year where Kupp was not as valuable down the stretch to them, and they brought in somebody like Adams, who's been a dominator. So down on Kyren, the math says that it's going to be hard for all three to pay off.
Such a nerd, man. Don't worry about the math, Kyle. Just watch the games, okay? No, I'm with you. It makes sense. All right, I mentioned the Seahawks and just kind of them telling us we're running the football this year. You don't need anybody to tell you what the Steelers are doing. Everybody knows it. They're going to hand the ball off on repeat as much as possible, as long as Arthur Smith is in charge of the offense. And just for a reminder, going back to 2019, his offenses, here's their rank in rushing attempts. And this is when he was the OC with Tennessee, then Atlanta as the head coach, and obviously now in Pittsburgh. They have been 10th, 2nd, 29th. That was his first year in Atlanta with Matt Ryan as the quarterback, and Cordell Patterson was their leading rusher. Then in 2022, 1st, and since then 3rd and 4th. So he has been a top 10 team as far as like rushing attempts when he's been in charge in 5 of 6 seasons. The yards, 3rd, 2nd, 31st. It's the same Matt Ryan season. 3rd, 9th, and 11th. So again, we're getting like a top 10 rushing volume, top 10 rushing yardage type of offense. That's not a question. And you look at the wide receiver room, it's the same conversation as last year. There's one guy at the top. Obviously, Pickens is gone. It's DK Metcalf. And there's nobody else that they even care about. My question when doing this research and just like looking back at the reminders of how good these numbers are from a rushing attack standpoint, why aren't we drafting Caleb Johnson and to some degree Jaylen Warren higher? Both guys go outside the top 24 at running back. And historically, the data is showing us these guys are going to touch the football a ton. Now, last year, you know, there was a lot of conversation of like maybe Warren can overtake Najee and all those sort of questions. I've cooled off a lot on that stance of like where I think Warren could go as a player. My take on this is more like I think Caleb Johnson is so undervalued. Went through our UDK projections. As things stand right now, we've got him projected for over 240 touches. That seems like a really good bet at an RB25 price tag on an offense that you know is going to run the football a ton.
What if I told you that I looked up, because Jason is really bullish on Caleb Johnson.
I think he's a perfect fit in this offense.
I mean, he's really bullish. He has been running back 19. So that's like saying he is the guy. Not just like he'll take over, but he is the dude. And basically, if you get 220 plus opportunities as a rookie running back and you have day 2 draft capital, you're a top 24 running back. And yet he's not being drafted there at all. I hopped in a Schnauzer the other night, getting ready for bed. You know, I skipped I was supposed to do the reading in bed. That's what they tell you to do. but I did a best ball draft. Whoops.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do to wind down from the day, relax, right before bed.
No screen time.
Get in the schnauzer.
No screen time. Yeah. So I have this team and I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, I really want Caleb Johnson. I don't think he'll make it back to me. Okay. So I'm just sitting there and he just keeps falling. Like nobody is taking him bets. He went 84th overall to me in a draft. Like he went a full 8 picks behind where his ADP was. And usually I'm having to scoop up these rookie running backs like way before ADP. So it might have been a fluky thing in a draft, but he's my RB3 on a squad.
That's
so
beautiful.
I'm feeling pretty good.
That's beautiful. And it's not, to me, this is not just a Caleb Johnson conversation, though obviously I think the higher ceiling is with him. But I think Warren's a great pick too, as part of these kind of modified hero RB teams or whatever we're calling it these days. But RB34 price tag, I think for both guys, there is just like unreal contingent upside that I think both can be good at their cost, but also at the same time, if Warren goes down and Caleb Johnson is getting everything, he's going to be an incredible play every week in DFS. If Caleb Johnson happens to go down, we're playing Jalen Warren, right? So like there is so much contingent upside, and that's kind of what best ball is, that I want to mix and match exposure to both these guys all summer and definitely come in overweight just because these guys are the focal point of the offense and the ground game with Arthur Smith, which he's shown us year over year. This is what they're going to do.
Now, I see in our projections for Jalen Warren, we haven't projected for a receiving touchdown, but he's never done that in his entire career.
If only Andy, Mike, and Jason knew ball. I mean, they clearly don't.
No. And I sent you a photo the other day of Jalen Warren working out. I was like, oh, man, I can't fade this guy.
I mean,
just based on this photo alone.
My sources are telling me he might be in the best shape of his life.
Well, but I'll just say this. What usually happens is if you like a player and he doesn't do as well, you're a year too early. So Betz was like Mr. Jalen Warren last year.
That's right.
So you're just a year too early.
That's right.
Right back in. All right, let me finish off by talking about the Titans, because I don't think, if you're a listener right now, you're saying, I need to stack the Titans. And I really went through the data and I was like, okay, would this be helpful for my team to stack Titans? Because right now the ADP is kind of gross. It's Ridley going as the first Titan off the board, 56 overall, wide receiver 31. Speaking of year too early, Calvin Ridley. Tony Pollard is going right at the end of RB2. He's in the dead zone, by the way. He's firmly in a spot where it's like, okay, you're expecting him to be the guy and have the same workload as last year. Spears is another great 0 RB target. He was last year, and he was really good in the fantasy playoffs. And then you have Cam Ward all the way down there at 166 overall, QB 25. Are you interested? I'm going to give you some data in a second, but are you interested at all in Cam Ward as a late option, knowing that like there could be super volatile games? I'm talking games where he throws 3 picks and other games where he throws for 350 yards.
He, to me, is the, oh no, I'm out of stacks. I got sniped. What do I do?
That's literally what happened on my team, my Schnauzer good night going to bed team.
Yeah, because sometimes you're like, okay, I took Ridley. Like I'm not like when I take Ridley, I'm not like automatically putting Cam Ward in the queue. But sometimes your other players get sniped, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I need a QB2. This is a decent price. I think he can have some upside weeks because of how he plays, where he will push the ball down the field and take risks. And I think from a real life NFL standpoint, there's going to be a lot of bumps in the road, but all we care about is fantasy on this show. And if he is able to deliver some of those kind of exciting weeks, I think he is a fine pick where he goes. And then if you want a second guy, I mean, Chig is always available. If you're a sicko and want to take Tyler Lockett at this point in his career, he is available. If you want to throw a dart on one of their 2 rookie wide receivers in the 18th round, that's cool with me. Like, you can kind of mix it up. But yes, the Titans this year are the, oh crap, I need to stack. What do I do? Come on down, Cam Ward.
Dude, don't forget about Van Jefferson. Dude's
Is he on this team?
His cardio. Yeah, his cardio.
Oh man, we need the season to get here so we can just take under 2.5 catches every week and feed our families.
All right, let me give you some data about rookie quarterbacks, because it's not usually a good bet. 65% of the time since 2004, since like the Big Ben drafted years. This is a long line of data. 65% of the time, a rookie quarterback cannot support a single top 36 option. So it's actually not a great bet. I think Ridley's going at the sweet spot, though. Like, I think I'm totally fine. Only 7 wide receivers eclipsed 1,000 total yards in the season over the last 14 years with rookie quarterbacks. That's only 28%. And only 1 rookie quarterback has supported a wide receiver seeing 10-plus receiving touchdowns, and that was last year. Terry McLaurin, Jaden Daniels. But I'm going to read you my blurb about Ridley because he is my high-exposure Titan, and I did stack him with Cam Ward, and I'll just read it verbatim. You could read all the rest of the blurbs in there. I said, if you were burned by Ridley last year, join the club. It was a bumpy ride. He finishes the wide receiver 30. Enter number 1 pick Cam Ward, who is the type of gunslinger we all want at the helm, instead of the Temu version of Brett Favre known as Will Levis. Sorry, was that a bit rough? The stench carrying over from Ridley's 2024 season is carrying over in the drafts, and those battle wounds are causing many to bypass him again. What if last year was his floor? Even a slight improvement in his consistency can pay off where he is being priced as a fringe top 36 wide receiver. We can profit here, Betz. That's my point, is that I think we can profit, and I love your point of the, oh crap, I need to stack somewhere. Oh, cool, I have a QB2, QB3, who we know is going to get all the starts. They're not going back to Will Levis.
Right. Even though right now they're doing this weird split in OTAs, which who cares? But yes, he's starting the entire season, assuming health. So, and that's like it's kind of funny. Like that's the most that I care about when I take a quarterback that late is like, is this guy going to be starting in week 17? Because if I get there, I want to make sure I have both guys available. And like, you can't say that about Anthony Richardson or, in my opinion, Sam Darnold. You can definitely say that about Cam Ward.
Yeah. That's going to do it for this episode. Make sure you check out all of our best ball rankings, the full best ball primer in the Ultimate Draft Kit Plus. Feel free to reach out to Betz or myself if you have any questions about the best ball primer, especially in the Discord channel. Feel free to ping us if you need to. But Betz, sign us off.
Yes, sir. Fun episode. I can't wait for everybody to get into the UDK, the best ball primer, all the rankings. It's finally here. Hope you guys enjoy those. And like Kyle said, if you have any questions, hit us up. We'll be back next week for more best ball. Have an awesome weekend. We'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers DFS and Betting Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at thefantasyfootballers.com.
It's starting to sound like spring, but it's not official till you've lit up the grill with Kingsford Original Charcoal. This time of year, as we break in the backyard with friends and family, everything tastes better cooked with authentic wood-fired barbecue flavor. Thanks to Kingsford. Welcome, spring. Visit Kingsford.com for charcoal and more from America's grilling expert.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so, as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.